Hi everyone. As of today, I am 2 weeks on testosterone, and so I wanted to go through some of the changes that I've experienced, some of the things that I haven't experienced, things that I'm expecting, and so on and so forth. So in terms of actual physical changes, the main significant change that I'm still experiencing is BG. Again, if you know, you know. I'm not going to get too into it, but I'll be honest, it has actually been a more significant factor in my life this week than it was last week, so I thought it was worth at least mentioning. There has been another change that I've experienced that, again, I won't get into too much detail of. However, I experienced a shark week this week, and typically for me, that period lasts around 7 days. However, this time around, it lasted only 5 days, which is a big win for me, especially because up until that point, I was only taking 1 sachet of Testogel, and after that point, I started taking 1.5 as prescribed by my endocrinologist. However, the whole reason that I was prescribed 1.5 sachets is because one may not have suppressed my estrogen enough to impact that significantly. The whole reason that I was prescribed 1.5 sachets of Testogel instead of one is so that my estrogen would be suppressed and that I wouldn't experience a shark week. However, being on just 1 sachet for a week and a half actually had a significant impact on that already, so I'm very excited and I'm expecting in the future to have no more shark weeks. That might be a bit optimistic, but that's what I'm hoping for at the moment and that's what I'm expecting. There's one more physical change that I'll talk about, and that is that I have had a slight increase in weight and I feel as though my body composition is actually changing slightly. So before I started testosterone 2 weeks ago, I weighed 70 kilograms, and yesterday I weighed myself and I'm sitting at around 72 now. That 2 kilogram difference looks very good on me, I'm gonna be honest. That 2 kilogram difference actually has changed my physique significantly. Now when I look at myself from front on, I can actually see my lat muscles, which I never experienced before, and I'm very excited about that change. I hope that as I continue taking testosterone and going to the gym, I will experience more of that body recomp. I'm very excited about that. Before I started testosterone, that was actually one of the main changes I was looking forward to, and I really wasn't expecting it yet. So that's been very exciting. In terms of mental and emotional state, I've actually had some significant changes this week. The first one is that I have felt angry. I heard that there is such thing as T-rage, but I haven't experienced it until now. For the first time in my life, I actually experienced road rage, and I had no outward expression of this rage. It was just a very internal thing, and navigating this new level of potential anger is something that I have found challenging because, like I said, I've never really unlocked that potential. I've never really experienced anger like that before. However, I try to remind myself that my feelings don't have to dictate my actions or my thoughts, which makes it a lot easier to deal with. And in terms of mental changes, there have been a few things. I guess I'll get into a bit of a story. So earlier this week, I actually came out to my mum as Nathaniel, and I told her that I wanted to use he, him pronouns. That was a huge step for me, and I actually introduced myself to a stranger as Nathaniel for the first time. And that happened at boxing, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't think I was going to do it. Stepping into this traditionally masculine environment, I was taping, I was not fully flat, I have small hands, and I'm not particularly strong. And I thought all of these things made me clockable, and because of that, I almost introduced myself under a name that I didn't want to and pronouns that I didn't use. However, I was with a friend of mine who actually introduced me as Nate using my preferred pronouns, and that was like a big weight lifted from my shoulders. And I was scared to be clockable in this kind of environment. However, it turns out that nobody cared. And that is honestly the best kind of response that I could have gotten in that time. I'm honestly really proud of myself for showing up and doing this thing even though it really scared me. And I hope in the future that I continue to support myself and back myself. That's probably one of the main takeaways from this week, is that you should always back yourself and support yourself. You know, we always talk about support, but to be honest, I'm my biggest hater. So I need to change the way that I support myself. The other biggest takeaway for me this week is that being trans doesn't have to stop me from doing the things that I want to do. I think one of the reasons that I struggle with self-acceptance and loving that I'm trans is because I constantly use being trans as an excuse to not do the things that I want to do. I can't do boxing because I'm trans. I can't do jiu-jitsu because I'm trans. I can't do XYZ because I'm trans. However, I need to reframe the way that I think about being trans and realize that being trans is actually the reason that I can continue to live my life. It's not stopping me from doing the things that I want to do, it's actually allowing me to do the things that I want to do in an indirect way. Being trans is more of an enabler than I think I give it credit for. I made this video in a bit of a rush. I hope it makes sense, and I hope it helped. I also hope that I see you guys next week. Bye!